draft or something that I was
Oh,
on.
yeah. I'd be honored. Let me know.
Everything good there?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, away for vacation for a week plus and taken out from under it after that. But yeah, no complaints. Love this job. It's a great job.
Yep.
Later today, I get to spout off about a new through cut design. So what could be better?
Where?
Near Charlotte, Union County, I think.
Okay. Fun.
Yeah. So as long as we keep getting to do things like that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the article in the CFI that Mike sent. I think they misquoted them.
Which one was that?
The CFI down near Charlotte.
Oh, yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
seems
those
to be huge.
locally anyway.
All right, I think we can get started.
Okay.
Sounds good. I will switch over here. There we go. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our fourth session in the Conversations in Transportation series on this Tuesday, the 27th of July. Thank you for being with us. I will make my usual announcements. If you have questions that you come up with, please use the Q&A function on Zoom so we can keep track of those questions. We're going to save the questions for the end of the webinar, last 15 minutes or so. We'll have those questions asked. If you have any technical issues, please let me know. You can either email me or you can use the chat function. Other than that, you will, as I mentioned in the email when I sent the Zoom link out, receive a link this afternoon to retrieve your PDH form and evaluation forms for this session. We really appreciate the feedback. And with that said, I don't think, Joe, can you think of anything anything else they need to know before we hop to it?
So I think we're good.
All right, then I will introduce our Nixite president, Dr. Joe Hummer. He will introduce in turn our guest.
Good, good. Thanks, Andy. Of course, that was Andy Wagner of HNTV, our producer who makes all this possible, and we really appreciate his efforts. It is good to be with you today for episode 4 of our Conversations in Transportation. Today, pleased to be with Gil Chlewicki, the inventor, the U.S. inventor of the diverging diamond interchange, and we want to talk generally about innovation today. The idea behind the series was to talk with interesting people about their careers, about topics, about ideas, and hopefully we are appealing to transportation professionals out there, you all of all ages and job titles. We're glad to be sponsored by 2 of our councils in Nixite, Adam Fisher and the Strategic Initiatives Council, and Christina Whitfield with the Young Members Council. Appreciate their help and support of this series and the Nixite in general. And also thanks to our sponsors, the diamond sponsors and gold sponsor companies that you saw in the title slide. Probably worth a mention, at least diamond sponsors, Kimley Horn, RSH, VHB, WSP, Stantec, AECOM, and HDR, who really make this possible to do these webinars for free. So appreciate that. With that, let's move on here, talking with Gil Chlewicki about innovation. In my opinion, Gil is one of the transportation engineers out there with one of the top records of innovation currently in the profession. His most well-known innovative contribution being the diverging diamond interchange, which he published in 2003, but he's also introduced 6 other designs in published papers, variations of the DDI, the intersection version of the DDI, and the really cool design I like a lot, the two-way continuous T intersection. I'm always looking for a place to maybe build one of those in North Carolina. Gil's also looked at innovative ways to help pedestrians and bicyclists across at intersections. He's been active at TRB for many years, 25 years of professional experience, and he currently works at the Rockville, Maryland Office of Advanced Transportation Solutions. And my favorite part of his bio, Gil has been designing roads since he was a little kid. Me too. That makes 2 of us. Maybe there's some of you out there like that as well, but I really like that. Gil, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk first about the DDI. It's the headline innovation of yours, and maybe the best one of the best innovations of the last 20 years in transportation. Tell us the story of the DDI. How'd you get it to publication?
Okay, well, it started in grad school, and it was just a simple term paper for a class. And the professor asked us to write a paper on any topic as long as he approved the topic. And I was thinking at the time about jug handles and how jug handles are basically interchange ramps at an accurate intersection. So I was thinking, wow, what if I found some really interesting interchange that had some interesting ramps and converted that to an accurate intersection? So there was a very interesting interchange in Baltimore, just northeast of Baltimore, I-695, I-95. If you go to Google Earth, you can find the interchange that's been redone recently. But if you go to the historic views, you'll see the design where the interchange, the 95 and 695, they crossed over each other. So the right exits happened, then they crossed over each other, the through movements, grade separated, and then they have left exits. And so I thought, wow, what if I made this whole design at grade, just as a concept? Obviously not going to do that for an interstate interchange, but just as a concept. So I played around the geometry a little bit to make it more tight. And then you had basically a main intersection in the middle, and then you had all these crossover signals on the outside. And I thought, that's nice, but you really need a perfect situation for that to work traffic-wise. But what if I untangled one side and just kept the other side tangled? And with that, I came up with the concept, which I wound up calling the synchronized split-phasing intersection, which I loved. In fact, traffic-wise, I love it more than DDI even, because you can get that perfect progression. But once I had that and I had something different than interchange, I said, okay, well, now that I have something different, what if this became an interchange? And so instead of having direct right and left at the intersection, I built the ramps, and that became the DDI. So I got an A on my paper. That was good. And I started studying it more, and it was really, I thought the idea was really good. And then, I wound up finally publishing a paper at the Urban Street Symposium conference that was held through TRB in Anaheim, California in 2003. My advisor said it's easier to get something into a conference than it is to get into like a published paper. So just do that, you'll get a paper approved pretty easily, and then you can present it, and that's what wound up happening.
The reminds me of the FedEx founder, Fred Smith, who came up with the idea for his company as part of a class project as well. I think if I remember the story right, he only got a B on his paper. So, but occasionally something good happens out of those papers and classes. So, order of magnitude, how many hours or days or years do you think you spent kind of polishing up the DDI before it was ready for prime time?
Concept-wise, it didn't take long. It was the term paper. I played around with it a little bit more. I did do some simulations in Synchro at the time, just to kind of play around with it. I did a test intersection for the SSP, the synchronized split-phasing intersection, a test interchange for the DDI. So that took some hours.
Mhm.
But this was all my own time, and I proved that to myself that hey, it works. And then the real part was, can you get the geometric design to work? The traffic looks to work. Now can you get the geometric design to work and make sure there's no driver confusion?
It's important to be your own tough critic, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and it's really important to not just say, oh, this will work. Don't worry about it. You got to keep criticizing. You got to keep saying, well, this could be a problem. This is a problem. Is there a fatal flaw? Keep looking for those fatal flaws. And when I didn't see a fatal flaw, the only potential fatal flaw was again the driver confusion. But I didn't think that was going to be a huge issue. I thought it could be an issue, but I didn't think it would be a huge issue. But that was the only thing that could possibly have been a fatal flaw for his design.
That squares with, if I'm asked to describe the DDI these days, I say it's an interchange that it's not the best at anything, but it's not, there are no flaws. It's not bad at anything either. It's sort of,
Right.
it does a middling job at everything we ask an interchange to do.
Right. And of course, there are situations where the DDI does not make sense at all.
Sure.
But yeah, it's pretty powerful because of the way it's configured.
So did you go to the ribbon cutting of the first one in Springfield in 2009?
I did. It was a surprise. I found out a week before the ribbon cutting ceremony that they were opening up the first DDI in Springfield, Missouri. And for a while, it looked like it could have been first DDI could have been in Ohio, Findlay, Ohio, and then it looked like it was going to be in Kansas City, the Front Street DDI, which eventually did open up, but they had funding issues. And so little did I know that the southwest corner of Missouri in Springfield, they saw the Kansas City DDI and said, wow, this might solve this problem here in Springfield. So they did everything in-house. There was no consultant. And it was kind of a secret. Even Federal Highway didn't really know. At least like maybe the branch knew, but not like the headquarters. And so I found out a week before, I got a call from Federal Highway saying, hey, this DDI is opening up in Springfield, Missouri. So my boss was actually on vacation. So during that week, so I said, I'm just going to drive there and go. I don't care. And so I made a few calls to Missouri and made sure, they knew who I was. I was some weirdo coming. And so I drove down there. It's a 17-hour drive from Maryland down to Springfield, Missouri. And it was great.
I can't imagine how that must feel to see this thing that you came up with, and now it's actually being built and it's working.
Right. No, it was great. And then to hear the story from them also, what the problem was there. It was a huge problem with backups 2 to 3 miles in both directions in the morning and evening peaks. Crashes unbelievable. You had this left turn lane that was split on the bridge, and there was just no room for it at all, for capacity wise, for the storage. So it solved so many problems, and people were walking on the bridge in the lanes because there was no sidewalks. So it solved so many problems for them without touching the bridge. It was just amazing how successful it was. You could see on day one how successful it was.
I would argue the DDI has probably been the most successful of the alternative designs, maybe the Arcot RCI Super Street, but DDI is certainly right there in the mix. So why do you think it's done so well compared to dozens of other designs that over the same time period that really haven't?
Well, I think the first thing is that, it's got to work operation-wise. So traffic has to work, and because the DDI can flow traffic continuously for several movements at the same time, if you have the right conditions, the DDI works great operational-wise. So that's got to work first. Then I think the really big thing is the cost. Because you don't have this big footprint that you have for park closed or clear reliefs, you can fit in a tight diamond interchange, so you don't need the land for it. And then you don't need to have these big structures either, because now these left turn lanes that you needed to have for storage, or these aux lanes that you needed to have for the loop ramps for the acceleration lanes, you don't need them on the structure or below the structure anymore. So you can split off the turns from the through movements and then that really brings down the cost and the structure. So, I mean, those are the two biggest costs for any interchanges: the structure costs and the footprint. If you can bring those down, I mean, the DDI the cost saving has been tremendous. So that's been the real big factor. And now we see safety-wise, the DDI is great safety-wise as well. So we theorized at the beginning that, you know, convo points are going to be reduced from 26 to 14 compared to the diamond interchange, and we're spreading the convo points out, and there's only going to be 2 crossing convo points versus 8 or 10, depending on how you count them. And then, you know, we see from the crash data that, yeah, the DDI is working just tremendously safety-wise. So that's now DDIs are being considered for safety reasons.
Yeah. Talked a few minutes ago about how you need to sort of be your own critic. I agree with you. I think that's important. But you also need to have, as you're an innovator, you need to have confidence in your idea too. But you can't let that go too far either, because then you don't want to be arrogant. So talk about balancing those things. How do you kind of find the right level of those things?
Well, I mean, you got to be pretty confident that the thing's going to work. And in order to be confident that thing's going to work, you got to criticize it, and you got to scrutinize it, and you got to continuously see, well, how can I improve this? I mean, I'm continuously still trying to improve the DDI. I mean, there's still small things, small details that I'm trying to improve on, and get other DATs to realize that there's still certain things you can do better. I mean, it works great, but you can still do it better. So you really need to just make sure that you're looking at every detail, and you're being honest with yourself and honest with the process that, you know, is this going to really work? If it's not going to work, there can't be wishful thinking. You got to be confident that, yeah, I mean, there might be something I'm missing here. You never know, but you know, based on everything that I'm looking at, I'm pretty confident that this is going to work. And once you're confident about it's going to work, and you're really honest about it, then you don't have to be arrogant. I mean, because it's going to work. So
No.
the proof will be there.
Yeah. Who keeps you grounded?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm pretty grounded myself. I've always been grounded. I've always been pretty modest. So I mean, it's actually might be a flaw of mine.
Yeah, self-promotion that doesn't come easy for some of us, especially planners and engineers.
Yeah.
So you had help along the way getting the DDI to the ribbon cutting and beyond, to whatever, we got 150 of them now or something. So talk about that. Who helped you? Who were the real champions along the way?
Well, when I presented in Anaheim, I had a lot of people looking at me like I was crazy. I mean, I was just a young engineer. You know, this is kind of a crazy idea. Who would ever cross traffic to the left side of the road? It's ridiculous. But someone from Federal Highway, Joe Barrett, who recently retired, he thought it was a good concept, and he was already looking at other new designs already. And so we talked for a while, and he wanted to study this further. And so he did. And in 2005, he published his first paper that showed, hey, you know, this grad student actually is not so crazy after all. I tried this on more operational variations and ratios, and this thing works. Both of them work. But I'm going to concentrate on the interchange, is what Joe said, because Joe thought that, and correctly, that it had more of a chance. And so in 2005, after that study, he was really trying to promote it across the country, and that helped tremendously. Yeah. And got it on the ground. I mean, I was in Maryland. I was able to get on the project in Maryland as an alternative. It didn't make much sense, you know, in the end for that location, just because everything worked so great. You know, why try something new in this location? But you know, first was Joe Barrett at Federal Highway, and then once certain DOTs looked at it, they started to really consider it as a possible option. I would say that the two biggest DOTs that really were pushing it was Missouri, because of a lot of the issues they were having, and Utah were the two states where we're looking at it. I mean, in Ohio, the problem was that they almost got to the finish line. It needed the final approval in Finley to get approved, but they were scared to actually do it.
I think they opened that one in Finley just recently. I drove through there, and I thought I spied it.
Yeah, it took a long time. Yeah.
So you're pointing to sort of a culture of innovation that Missouri DOT, Utah DOT, is that a thing? Is it really a culture that a DOT can have that sparks innovation?
Definitely. I mean, I think you have to have a culture in the DOT in order to have innovation. I think Utah is a really prime example of innovative DOT. I mean, they're looking at every little thing to try to innovate, and they're not scared to try something new. And they tried the DDI as soon as they could. They were trying. I mean, they had DDIs in design while the Kansas City DDI was under design before the Springfield one. Missouri. I think Missouri is, pretty innovative, but they are short on funds, yeah. And so the DDI was really great in terms of cost savings, and they needed some sort of solution. So. Missouri has tried. Missouri has tried other things. They do have a CFI out there. They do have some jug handles. They do have some other things, but their motivation is saving money. So their culture, it's hard to tell. Also, they have their different districts, and each district their entity, so it's harder to tell sometimes. But yeah, innovative culture is extremely important. If you don't have the innovative culture in the agency, then you're not going to get innovation. It's that simple.
And how does North Carolina do in that regard?
So, North Carolina, I think, is definitely near the top, if not the top. I think North Carolina, I'm lucky to be in a state in Maryland where we've been innovative for a long, long time. I think North Carolina and Maryland are probably the only two states that have an innovative intersection. Each of the innovative intersections that now have guides for. So the CFI, the median U-turn, the quadrant roadway, DDI, I'm missing one probably, I'm not sure. But yeah, so, and other states are starting to move up a little bit. So it's good to see that some states are starting to really understand that innovation is important. And in order to solve their problems, they need to be innovative.
Yeah. So the other side of that, Gil, how do you avoid the naysayers? Because, you alluded to it already. There are people that looked at your idea and said you're nuts. So how do you not pay attention to them, or what's your strategy there?
Bye.
Yeah.
If you're going to say no, I'll try to convince you, but I'm not going to bang my head over you. If you really are going to be someone who doesn't want to try something new, then no matter how I try, it's not going to work. If you're already convinced, only you can change yourself. I can try to convince you, but only you can change yourself. And if you're not going to change and try something new, then you just go to the next customer.
Yeah. Do you read the bottom of the internet?
Not for politics.
No,
but for intersections DDI, I do.
Okay. I don't. I can't go there. So that's my way of saying. But you're a better person than I am if you can read that stuff and still come away with it. So yeah, how do you find or separate the constructive criticism from the people who are just trying to make you shut up and go away?
Well, when people are commenting, they're just trying to, either they have an agenda or they're just trying to blurb out whatever they want to blurb out, or they're actually trying to help it. So, fortunately, the DDIs, most people, after they drive through a DDI, they're very acceptable. They accept it very, very willingly, and they realize how good it is. There are very few complaints from the public in terms of the DDI. So most of the comments are positive if they're not ignorant. Yeah. If they are ignorant, then they say, this sucks, and, why would you do this? And you're going to ruin everything. But it's the same kind of thing you hear about any kind of new design. So when that happens, all right, you're ignorant. That's fine. That's what you have right now. And I'll try to convince people. I will never comment myself. I don't bother with that. But if they go to my website, my Divergent Diamond website, and they ask me, what are you thinking? I'll explain it, and usually I can convert them to at least understanding it and willing to consider it.
I've thought for many years that in our business, innovations are held to a higher standard than doing a traditional thing. Planners and engineers judge an innovation against some ideal rather than against the do nothing case. Do you agree with that?
No, definitely. I mean, it's definitely, in order to try something new, I think there's a higher standard because there's a greater risk. Because there might be a chance for a failure because you don't know what's going to happen. So that greater risk brings it to a higher standard. And sometimes it's fair, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're looking for excuses to why not to do something.
Yeah.
And I think an important part of the innovative culture is to not say no, at least initially. Say maybe, say yes. It's funny. My son says, Daddy, when you say maybe, I always know that it's going to be yes. And it's amazing how if you ask other people, when someone says maybe, it almost always means no. So having an innovative culture, innovative mind means that maybe is a way to get to yes. Try to get to yes. And if you can't get to yes, then you may have to say no at the end, and that's fine. But don't just say no. Never say no to an idea. Never say no to a concept or a criticism. Consider it. Say maybe. See if it's valid. See if there's a way to get to yes. If it's not get to yes, then say no.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. Was liability ever a concern for you in the development of the DDI?
Not really. I mean, I wasn't going to be the one building the first one. It was going to be some agency, and I didn't patent it, and it just wasn't something that I thought was going to be a big deal.
Or how about for Missouri or Utah or the early innovators? Did you ever get a sense from them that they were concerned about liability?
The Springfield, Missouri one, I mean, things were so bad there from safety and operations that there was going to be improvement no matter what. It was just a matter of scale.
Yep.
So I don't think they were worried about it there. And I think once that would showed to be working, and the other thing that was great also with the DDI, which I forgot to mention, was that before I wrote the first paper in 2003, I actually discovered the one in Versailles, France, when I was on vacation, of all things. And I saw from the tour bus, I was like, what? So, and in my paper, I actually wrote that, I was honest. I said, look, there was one at DDI already in France that I discovered, or at least my concept. It was a little different geometrically than what I was envisioning, but it was the same concept otherwise. And so the Federal Highway actually found there were 3 in France. And so knowing that there was one already in France, and then knowing that the Springfield one was built, I mean, that helped agencies say, look, it's going to work.
Yeah, and once the safety data start to come in, the liability concerns are much less, of course, but that first one or first couple out of the box, that still might be a concern.
But I've always been about documentation. Just document your reasoning and why you think this is going to work, and as long as you have good engineering judgment that for things you don't know, that this is going to be a good solution, then if it works, great. If not, don't do it again.
Let me just finish up on the story of Versailles, France. That you were visiting your sister. Was that you were on vacation? You're visiting your sister.
Yeah.
You get bored one day. You get on the tour bus to go out to the palace. And
so I was so the following semester, my sister was studying abroad in Seville, Spain, and so I said at the end of the semester, why don't I fly out there and we'll go tour Europe?
Yeah.
So I flew out to Spain. I did a tour of Spain and Portugal myself for about 9 days. When the bus came to Seville, it was the day after her last final exam. So she came up with me to Madrid. Then we went for like a week and a half to around Europe ourselves. Then went to London, where my other sister flew in, and we drove around. The very last day of the vacation was we were in Paris and we did a trip to Versailles, France, and that's when I didn't know at all.
Yeah.
Also roundabouts in France. There's plenty of roundabouts in France. But yeah.
It had to be a moment.
Definitely.
So you mentioned that this was on your own time back in those days. So talk about that a little bit and kind of generalize, how do innovators make a living while they're tinkering?
It's hard. I mean, in this industry, it's very hard because, I mean, most people innovate to make money.
Yeah.
And you're not really innovating in this industry to make money necessarily, because innovation is hard to sell in transportation. And even when if you do sell it, it takes a long time for it to become something real. Um, so you got to, I mean, like you said at the beginning, I've been doing this since I was a kid, drawing stuff and designing stuff. So it's just been my hobby. This is my profession, is my hobby, which is great. Um, so I've been always doing things on my own for different things, and always thinking about new concepts. And in order to get some of these concepts out there, you really got to do it on your own and get a paper out there and just show like here's a new idea, because I found very few other ways to successfully get an idea out there that will be accepted without first writing a paper or something like that.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that later, but let me jump to it. Besides writing the paper, and you mentioned website, um, other ways to sort of get your innovation, get your idea out there that you found is helpful?
Oh, I mean, I guess the other thing is networking. I mean, when I talk to you about some ideas I have, or talk to other innovators or people that are willing to listen and try new things. People, friends at Federal Highway who are able to spread things out across the country. By networking and getting ideas where, hey, we could think about it, and then move from there. So I think that's the other kind of way to do it. I'm not sure if there's anything that you discovered.
No, and I'm not very good. Maybe the visualization simulation type of route, but that's not, so I usually ask somebody else to do that for me. That's what grad students are for, right? Uh, But yeah, that's a tough one. It's not, again, it's not something we're good at as engineers and planners, is the sort of promotion or PR aspects.
Right, right.
Did you ever think about applying for a fellowship or something to support your innovative habit?
No, I'm not sure what's out there, to be honest with you. So no.
And you never have worked for a university other than grad school, but since then you haven't worked for a university or a research center or really in the research business. So, why not? Do you think that they do a good job of supporting innovation?
Um, yeah, I mean, I do like research, and I've been doing more and more research as the years have gone. But I think it's really important to stay in the application side as well. I think to become an expert on something, you need to have what you need to have three elements: knowledge, understanding, and application. And on the research side gets the knowledge and they get the understanding. When they do the research, they're trying to understand that knowledge and get new knowledge, but they don't apply it in the real world, and that can create problems. Not problems, but it can slow innovation, because when you don't know what the how part of it, when you don't know the applying part of it, it can create things that you're not aware of in the process, in certain design elements. So I really feel like to be an expert on something, you need to have both the research side and the practical side, the application side. So I steered clear of academia for mainly that reason. A few other smaller reasons, but
Good, good. What about innovation in companies? Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, those are three heroes of mine who somehow, managed to be personally innovative and create innovation, get a corporate culture of innovation going there too. So have you thought about that? Starting a company or, making your company more innovative?
yeah. Well, I am on my own right now. I mean, I'm trying to sell innovation. Innovation is hard to sell, and I mean, I think on the consultant side, on the contractor side, on the contractor side, in the construction, I mean, if you're saving money, you're doing the ABC construction and putting building the bridge on one side and bringing it in, like, oh, that's awesome. You're saving lots of money. Great. We'll do it. But in terms of ideas and concepts, from the consultant side, you're only able to sell your innovation to the client based on what the client's willing to do. And too many times, the way to sell it to a client is to do it during the proposal phase, which is a very short phase, and you got to convince them very quickly that your idea is the better idea. And so if you're going like a small idea better, then the DOT can buy it. But if you're trying to make a couple leaps ahead, a real innovative idea, it's a really, really hard sell. And I've been unsuccessful on many of those cases. And then the next thing you try to do is you try to market your client before the proposal comes out. But that gets tricky too, because clients are busy as well. They only have so much time, and you can't bother them too much. And then if you don't know if you get the idea to the client screams it to someone else, and the other person gets the idea. So there's many issues with that.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like overall you're very sort of optimistic about innovation in our business. That's a lot of barriers.
It is a lot of barriers. Yeah. I think it really starts at the agency level. And the agencies have to be innovative first before the consultants can really sell better innovation.
Back to your process. Just talk us through, Gil, thinking of a new idea. Is it literally sitting down with a blank piece of paper and starting to sketch, or what does that look like?
So when I was a kid, I used to just draw a pen and actually draw it with me. You can kind of see. I know, Joe, you've seen this before, but I spread it out on the dot matrix computer paper way back when. You can see drawing it out. So that's what I did when I was a kid. This is actually from high school, that drawing. So yeah, I would draw things out and then the pen go wherever it wants to go. And then, if I made a mistake, I couldn't erase it. So then, I would see what would happen and then how that would operate. And some of these designs would work, some of them wouldn't work. That was my old process. I mean, the newer process now for me is, it's really, innovation to me is really making new connections from different ideas. And so the more you know about different aspects and the more diverse you are in terms of various elements of traffic side, the geometric design side, we're talking about innovative intersections, making those connections and how it works with each other. You can start very easily come up with the new ideas. And then the ideas come up with other things besides geometric design. You just kind of think about how something works and then apply to something that seems foreign, but then, hey, maybe we can use it for this concept as well. And so it's just making those new connections, thinking about things, understanding it a little more, just thinking a little more deeper about what's going on, and then just making connections that make, two things that might not seem to make sense connected right away. Can I connect it? And if you can, then, flow with the idea and see how it works.
Yeah. Good. A lot of us planners and engineers are introverts, and we prefer the blank piece of paper and happy afternoons drawing. But you're describing a much more social process. So how do us introverts learn to reach out like you're describing?
I mean, I'm an introvert too, but I think in terms of the connections, just trying to keep learning, try to keep understanding. I think one of the things in this industry is that we have too many people that don't go to grad school. They graduate with their undergrad degree and that's it. And I think the biggest thing about grad school for me was not what I learned necessarily, like the actual subject itself, because I barely remember any of it. But I think it's really, one of my professors told me that, going to grad school is about becoming a chef. When you go to undergrad, it's being a cook. When you go to grad school, it's about being a chef. And the difference is that a chef creates the ingredients.
Mhm.
And from that, they can create something new and something spectacular, where a cook just follows the recipe. And so right now we have two people just follow the recipe. They just look to see, what needs to be done in the standards, and then they just do it. And we don't have enough people that are chefs in our industry right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Any ideas about how to change that?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if grad school necessarily is the way to do it. Um, it'd be nice. I mean, I know when I was in grad school, I was one of only two Americans that was full time there. Everyone else was an international student, which it was nice in terms of getting a diverse perspective on different things. So that part I liked about it, and diversity is key to innovation. The more diverse perspectives you have, the more innovative you can be. But I think if we create some sort of like instead of doing PDE just on like conferences and webinars, if we could do some sort of advanced education on on innovation and on understanding things to a deeper level, and it doesn't have to be getting a master's degree, but maybe you can have a certificate or something. If we can create some sort of innovative, and I've thought about this, the possibility of some sort of like institution, not an institution, but some sort of thing that kind of like builds innovation.
Yeah, that's back to that's Steve Jobs. That's Jeff Bezos.
Mm-hmm.
Create the innovation lab.
Yep.
You mentioned patent a few minutes ago. You did not patent the DDI, or as far as I know, any of the other innovations, right?
Correct.
Do you have an opinion on the patent process?
I think the patenting is for the most part a waste of time, to be honest, because I mean, for design elements, if you depend a design concept, then you're pretty much holding it hostage to every single potential client. And I didn't want that. I wanted these ideas to be out there and for people to try it. And as long as I had some sort of way to show that I came up with the concept, which I do through papers, then I'm happy. I'm not going to make money off of this.
Yeah.
I'm making money off being an expert on DDIs, and so I've been known for them. I'm making money being an innovative person. People are looking for me for innovative ideas. So, but I want people to hire me for my brain, not for something I drew.
Yeah.
And so and we're not going to get rich in this industry anyway. So
no,
I've given up on that.
Wouldn't be a bad thing.
It wouldn't be a bad thing. Yeah. But I think the patent is an obstacle that's not. I mean, and there are a few designs that are patented and they've gone nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Talk about the publication process. You got your paper published in 2003. Were the reviewers hostile, or I mean, obviously you got through the process, but are reviewers receptive to innovation?
Right. Well, it was easy for that being a conference where it was just an abstract they reviewed. So that was really easy. I've definitely reviewed many papers on other innovative ideas. I've seen other reviewers, and I want to be fair. I want to push people to look at some of the ideas and make them as good as they can. But I'm fair with them, and I definitely see some reviewers that are not fair. Although it's gotten better. I do think back when the DDI was first introduced, I mean, and then seeing papers of that, the reviews were really bad. I think people have started to get a little lukewarm, I would say, about some of these new ideas, new concepts. But then we're again, this is a problem with the engineers also, is that we are so much into saying no in terms of red inking things and finding problems and redlining things that that's what we do. And so I think when you're reviewing things, we often get into that kind of role and that kind of culture, and sometimes it goes a little too far.
Yeah. I want to remind everybody, if you've got a question, please enter that into the chat. As we wind down here, we'll be happy to take your questions for Gil, and welcome that. So don't hesitate. if you've got something. Um, the 3 levels of learning you mentioned before, knowledge, understanding, and application. You noted academics are missing the application side, but who's missing what other sides too? And
Well, I alluded to it that on the practice side that we have too many cooks and not enough chefs, and so you're missing the understanding side on the practice side.
Yeah.
So too many people are on the practice side are just looking at the recipes, looking at the standards, and then going right to the application and not going to the understanding part. And like if you're thinking about things like context sensitive solutions, the context sensitive is really the understanding. Understand your context. And so if you want really great solutions that are context sensitive, you got to understand what's going on, and then that's the missing part on a lot of these projects, and a lot of the application side is that we need more understanding. If we get the understanding part on the practice side, that would be a huge bonus.
yeah, and so then the obvious follow-up is how do we get that? Where does that come from?
Well, as I mentioned before, if we get more people in grad school to learn at least the idea of thinking as chefs, and if we start not relying as much on standards. Of course, we have to have standards, and of course, there's things we got to make sure we do. But when is the standard really about safety, and when is the standard about just making things look pretty and consistent? And when can we go away from the standard and design exceptions and design variances? There's such a huge obstacle in many DOTs, and can we find a way to just we create the design standards to begin with. Design exceptions, design variances shouldn't be that complicated in many cases. But we try to do what's easy instead of what's right a lot of times. And what's easy is follow the standards and not try something new. And so I think the process part would also be a way to push things forward as well.
What's easy is also what's profitable.
Sometimes, yes.
So there's that. Were you born to be innovative? Is it genetic or is it learned?
I think it would be both. I mean, I'm definitely innovative because of the way I was brought up, because always thinking about connecting different things, and it's happened not just in transportation, but in many things. I've always had grown up with thinking about new connections and things like that. So it is a little bit innate to me, and I think some people kind of have that. But I think it's a very capable. You can definitely learn how to be innovative. Again, it's just about making new connections to maximize benefits. So the more connections you can make, the more expertise you can have on different parts, or the more you can talk with different people with diverse backgrounds and diverse opinions, then you can come up with new ideas. And it's all about making the connections. And I just think you got to think a little differently. But once you train yourself to think a little differently, I think anyone can be innovative.
Was there a particular class in college or high school even you look back on and say that that class or that teacher really helped kind of develop that mindset in me?
No, I think it's more about my dad, really. Just being brought up with just thinking about new things and always having conversations and arguing about different things. I think it was really on the family side, where not saying that my teachers weren't valuable, but just in the main place I've gotten it growing up is probably from my dad.
Right. Andy, I saw a question come in.
I do remember to unmute myself. Yeah, Harry had a question. Have you looked at any other state standards, I guess, related to what you were just discussing?
In terms of DDIs, or?
He just,
I'm not sure.
Andy, he just sent a follow-up as well.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, he's asking about, yes, about DDIs, signing and marking them, I suppose.
Yeah, I've actually been encouraging states not to develop standards specifically for DDIs. Kind of going back to what the conversation we were having, like once you're stuck with a standard, then you can't be flexible. And I think there are a few things we can probably start making standards on at this point. The second DDI guide is out now. Definitely a lot of improvement from the first DDI. And we definitely have people in North Carolina that contributed to that and helped out with that. And they did a great job, including you, Joe. But a little. But yeah, I mean, so states are starting to put out standards. Some states are really quick with standards, and they get into trouble a lot of times because of that. But the states that have done some standards already, there are some slight variations. There's definitely things that you could still argue for or against. What I'll give you an example. It's not necessarily a standard, but in the first federal highway guide, they said that the crossover angle should be 45 degrees. And that's just a ridiculous standard to reach most of the time, especially if you're doing a retrofit and you're using an existing bridge. And we're seeing the research now that it's not really necessary. But if you're stuck with a 45-degree because you thought it was a good idea, that now you need a design variance for that, because some agencies will say, well, we're using the federal highway guide as our standard. And it's not supposed to be a standard, it's supposed to be a guide. So you can get in trouble with that. So I try to encourage states not to do that. Some states have the culture of building standards, so they are. And I've definitely seen a few of the standards. And in fact, in Utah, they tried to do that pretty quickly, standards. And I've heard they've regretted doing some of the stuff they've done.
Good point. Thank you. And thanks to Harry for those questions. Gil, you probably know I've got an interest in automated vehicles. It seems to be the way of the future for our profession. What do you think automated vehicles mean for innovation in our profession? How do you see that playing out?
I think it's huge. I think it's really huge. And I mean, to solve the operational issues in a lot of cases, and obviously the safety issues. As long as people can realize that you can have a crash every once in a while, but saving 99% of these lives is gonna be worth it for every 1% that happens. We're gonna try to solve that 1% also, but it's huge. That goes to the huge barrier that you were mentioning earlier about we have to get over some of these innovations. But then in terms of how it affects geometric design, it's going to be huge. I think how it affects the way people move, the way buying cars. Are we going to just rent a car or rent trips now, or are we going to still have cars that you own? I mean, there's so many things, and I think it's really interesting now also in terms of like traffic wise, when we're designing for 20 years in the future, are we designing with these automated vehicles in mind that are going to be out on the street at that time? And I think some agencies are trying to look at that, but a lot of them are not. And so we got to think of some of this stuff even now.
Yeah, that's easier said than done, maybe.
Yes.
Advice for our younger members looking in today, if they have in mind that they want to try to innovate and be creative and make the world a better place in that way, how can they best prepare?
Yeah, well, I would say that DOTs are becoming more into understanding innovation. I mean, not nearly as much as I would like at the moment, but they're slowly moving in that direction, so it's a good direction. So innovation is going to be out there. For if you have an innovation that you think is going to be good for a client or just for the welfare of this world, get it out there. If you're worried about someone stealing your idea, write a paper. Papers aren't that hard. Go to a conference. Write an abstract for a conference. That's the easiest way to get in there. I've been able to do that several times for several different ideas. And so instead of a really hard review, just if you're not academia, you don't need it. So just get the idea out there, and listen to what people say, and then try to improve on it. And then the idea could be on anything or about anything. Just try it. Just keep pushing for yes. Keep pushing for yes. Don't say no. Keep pushing for yes.
Yeah, we're about to come out with our call for abstracts for the North Carolina section annual meeting in November. So good advice there. Thank you. Please send in abstracts. But yeah, it is a good forum for creativity or something out of the box. Try it out and get some reactions. Yeah, good. What's next from Gil Chlewicki as far as innovations go? You got something brewing? Anything you want to unveil for us today, or?
Nothing I can necessarily unveil at the moment. I do have a few Gimmich design concepts that are still, waiting to be published somewhere at some time if I ever get the time to finally publish them.
Yeah.
I do have some other concepts on the pedestrian bicycle side that I'm trying to get out. If all these conferences start having these conferences being canceled because of COVID, then maybe they've been out already. But it looks like hopefully this pandemic will be over really soon, and I'll be able to get to some of these conferences and get some of these things out there. Because I think I have a lot of other good ideas out there, and hopefully they'll be out there as soon as I can get them out there.
And pedestrian bicycle, actually, an aspect that to me is looking for some good innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem with peds and bikes at the moment is that we're doing a decent job in the urban environment, but in the suburban environment, the rural environment, we're trying to take urban concepts, moving into suburban and rural concepts, and we just can't. They just don't work, and we got to find new ways. And so that's what I'm trying to do right now, is find innovative ways to solve the suburban and rural issues.
And for while spending $10, right? With those tight budgets in mind that we talked about before.
Right.
So, good. I think that about wraps it up. We're just about out of time. Andy, any last questions come in that we should field, or?
Not that I've seen.
Okay. Gil, any last closing thoughts?
Well, your questions were too good, so that's why.
Thank you.
We went through a lot here. No, but I would just say in terms of innovation that, just if don't get frustrated over it. If you have any ideas, I mean, I think innovators can get frustrated in this industry, and so just keep pushing, keep trying new things, try to get some paper out there, try to get some idea out there. It doesn't have to be a paper. If you're not a good writer, I mean, most engineers aren't good writers. I'm not a great writer myself. It doesn't matter. Just get something out there, or give a presentation at IT, give a presentation somewhere else about a new concept, and just keep pushing, even if it's got to be on your own for a little bit. If the idea is good, you'll get recognized.
Awesome. Let's wrap it there. Thank you so much, Gil. Always a pleasure, and particularly talking with you about for an hour on innovation is, I think, an hour very well spent for me anyway, and hopefully for the other folks on the line. Andy will send you a message with how to obtain your PDH form, fill out an evaluation, get a form, document your experience here, and look for us again probably in September with the next installment of Conversation in Transportation. Really appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day, rest of the week, and annual meeting in November. Hope to see you in person then. Thanks a lot. Take care. We'll get down to a handful of people left on the line and say thanks again. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.
And when you get your podcast up and running. If I'm lucky enough to be invited to that, I will be happy to show up and
Yeah,
give you what I got.
definitely. We'll definitely find some way to follow up on this for sure.